Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for July 8th through the 14th. And this week is about healing relational patterns with Venus in Leo opposite Pluto and several other transits that we're going to talk about that are happening this week. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm really excited and honored to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a psychological perspective. So we're in this sort of transitional period where we're sort of in Cancerian, or we are in Cancerian season, and then we also have some planets that are shifting into Leo. So we have some Cancerian energy going on, and then we're sort of adding the Leo dose, so to speak, this week. And this began last week with Mercury moving into Leo. We also had our new moon in Cancer last week on Friday, the 5th of July. And so we're in the waxing phase of the lunar cycle, the growth period of the lunar cycle, where we're beginning to be able to see more clearly emotionally over the next couple of weeks. And there's this momentum around doing and creating and bringing something into the material world. Now, Venus begins the week in Cancer. So Venus is at the last part of Cancer, and this week it's going to make a sextile to Uranus and a trine to Neptune. And both of these transits with Venus here are very easy, harmonious, they're additive, they're helpful. There is resources that we can tap into here. And in this case, it is around change and reinvention and innovation, Uranus, and it's also around connecting with states of pleasure that feel like we can relax and feel soothed and get into a flow state, Neptune. I think that this combination can also be really conducive to mental, emotional, spiritual healing, relational connection. We are talking about Venus, which is the planet of relationships, but it's also connected to our ability to feel good in ourselves, to feel good in our bodies. And Venus is also very connected to the part of the psyche that feels connected through relationship with a human being or through relationship with a sensory object or an experience. And so I think early in the week, while Venus is in Cancer and making these aspects, so Monday through Wednesday, Thursday, there's this opportunity that we can tap into to have these really enjoyable experiences and to bring a sense of ease and flow into our lives and to take advantage of any opportunities that may arise. And to even, I would say, seek those out as well, if that's something that you're especially craving at this point in time. The thing with the sextile and trine aspect is that there's this effortless ease sort of quality to them. And it's not something that's going to usually just present itself to us. It's usually something that we have to kind of keep our eyes open. So that's why I say seeking it out might be the way to go for you this week. Now on Thursday, the 11th, Venus will move into Leo. And so this is an important moment because it shifts the relational focus, Venus, from Cancer, which is about emotional connection and feeling and intuitive and connecting more with the feeling. And Cancer is really about looking at what our needs are and how we feel nurtured. So the focus is going from finding nurturing and assessing needs and safety and security in relationship to assessing how we feel seen and heard and recognized and appreciated and loved for who we are as a unique individual. Venus is also very connected to our sense of self-worth, self-esteem, how we feel valuable as an individual human. And so I also think that there can be this shift that happens this week around, I think Venus's journey through Cancer over the last month has been allowing for themes around self-esteem that connect into needs and nurturance. And then Venus in Leo is more about exploring our connection to self-worth, self-esteem, that's more about our self-expression and the people that we align ourselves with and how we feel around other people, how we feel around different settings, what different people invoke in us, our different roles. And then on another layer of this, so this is Venus in Leo, and then an additional layer is that Venus will immediately make an opposition to Pluto because Pluto is at 1 degree of Aquarius. So Leo is opposite Aquarius. So anything that moves into Leo for a good long while is going to make an opposition to Pluto. And Venus opposite Pluto is quite sharp, and it is a very dynamic, and I would say, the word intense is coming to mind, but that's not quite it. It is a probing sort of transit because Venus is about relationships, enjoyment, beauty, pleasure, aesthetics, the things that we find to move us in some way. And it's connected to how we feel about ourselves. And then Pluto is about the psychological material that we have rejected or pushed away or pushed down in some way. Pluto is about the hidden, whereas Neptune, in contrast, is about the unseen and unseen, intangible realities, the things that we cannot tangibly touch. Pluto is about the unseen that has been pushed away or projected, or it's been othered in some way, or it's been secret for some reason. So Pluto's quite psychological, actually. Pluto's really connected to depth psychotherapy, where we're working with the unconscious, and Pluto reminds us that there are always things that we don't know, and there are always things that we don't even know that we don't know. And whenever we have an aspect involving Pluto, there is a potential to know more about something that has maybe been hidden or construed or distorted, or something that has been pushed away or forgotten for some reason, or that's been projected. And so this is really about the relational focus with this kind of thing too, when we're talking about Venus. And I think because it's Venus and Leo also, it's important to note that this may involve how you express yourself, how you show up, how you connect with other people in a way that is true to what it is that is actually inside of you, that wants to come out into the world, and noticing where you maybe put on a performance or put on a role, and that is highly necessary for most of us in order to survive in the world. We have different roles and things that we need to do. And then also at the same time, are these things that you're choosing? How do you feel about them? Is it maybe there is a role that you've adopted that maybe you didn't even realize was a role? I think that's quite possible this week, where there can be a new awareness around how you express yourself, and maybe realizing different parts of yourself that have been wanting to be expressed, that have wanted to, maybe there's even something creative that, and when I say creative, I don't necessarily mean art in the way that we think of it in the traditional way, but there's maybe something that wants to emerge from you. There is something creative about you designing your life that wants to come out. And of course, this is going to depend on where you have Leo situated in your chart. That's going to tell us more about where this revealing of something unconscious may emerge. It might be in your life personally, it might be internal, it might be external, it could be someone in your life, I don't know, partner, family member, work situation, etc. Let's see. So yeah, so that's kind of a core vibe that's happening this week, is relationships and things coming to light. And I think that it can happen literally in a relationship, and also it may be more that you realize your interpersonal dynamics, how you show up in relationship, how you show up as a human being. And because we're also working with Pluto this week, there's this theme around power dynamics in relationship. Pluto's very connected with sense of power and control and difficult emotions like shame or intense guilt. And so these things are also present in relationship, of course, too. And so there may be a way in which you become more aware of power dynamics that are in your relationships, or power dynamics even within your own psyche. I'll also say I would notice this week, I think this goes without saying, always notice this, but especially this week, is notice where you maybe have thoughts where you're judging yourself or berating yourself or being hard on yourself. I think that can definitely come up when we have Pluto in aspect to any planet or point, and especially so when we're having a transit like this. So we all get to experience this Plutonian sort of energy. Someone that lives with Venus connected to Pluto throughout their lives, there are connections around self-worth, self-esteem, self-judgment, power dynamics in the relationship. And I think this week it's really helpful to look at where you may be talking to yourself in an unkind way. And the moment that we notice that, it can start to shift and change and dissolve. So it's not like you need to necessarily do anything to stop it. Like, I guess I'm saying that because I want us to avoid getting mad at ourselves, like judging ourselves for judging ourselves. That just creates this snowball effect. So just, notice your inner dialogue. And if there are ways that you are being harsh with yourself or judging yourself. And then sometimes we can even flip that around. I think when we have an opposition, it is about polarity. And so we can flip things and question it and say, is this true? I'm thinking of Byron Katie's work. She will ask, is this true? Do you know this is true? Can you know with absolute certainty that this is true? And sometimes the answer is yes. A lot of times the answer is no. So these are things to sit with. Another part of what's happening this week is the Sun in Cancer will make a trine to Saturn. So this is another helpful aspect, and I actually really like this Cancer to Saturn situation because this is happening in water signs. It's a trine. There's this sort of flow and ease to this energy with two planets that are typically more connected with yang or paternal or masculine oriented sort of themes. And in this case, I see this as being a solidifying and strengthening of the self, strengthening of the ego, the sense of agency, the sense of autonomy. And so I actually really like that in combo with the Venus-Pluto, because I think Venus-Pluto, there is a lot of intense feeling and vulnerability with that aspect. And then I think the Sun making a trine to Saturn has this strengthening and bolstering for yourself. So I think that we can also tap into the Sun-Saturn trine this week by asking where it is you have a sense of agency and autonomy, where you are choosing something, where you are feeling into what is right for you in this moment. And knowing that you are doing your best in this exact moment and that you are choosing your life now. Even if the options are not options that you want to choose between, you are still choosing. You are choosing your life, and you're designing your life. We also have the first quarter moon in Libra on Saturday. And actually, before I go to that, I do want to say a very also minor but helpful aspect is Mercury in Leo will be making a sextile to Jupiter. And I like this also because it is supportive around figuring out a solution to a problem. Mercury is the mind, logical thought processes, and divination. So the ways that we get answers to life's problems. And then Jupiter is one of the benefic planets. It's a symbol of expansion and growth and big picture thinking. And it's also a symbol of helpful people. So this might be support around figuring out on your own an answer to a question. It may be that someone is a resource to you to figure out a challenge that you have. So the more that I'm, this is how it goes, right? The more that I talk through this with you, the pieces sort of fit together for me. So we have the Venus opposite Pluto, which is the most inflamed situation this week. It's like the most hot. It's the thing that all other things being considered equal, we're probably going to be noticing either in our own lives or in the people that are around us in our local setting. And so there's tension there, there's challenge, there's this kind of like grittiness to it. And then we have all of these other helpful aspects to sort of bolster us and bring in a sense of being able to solve problems. Mercury, Jupiter, bolstering your sense of autonomy, Sun, Saturn. And then the other piece of this too, before I talk about the first quarter moon, that we're going to talk about this more next week, but this has already been active the last couple of weeks, is that Mars is moving toward a conjunction with Uranus. This is happening in the sign of Taurus. And this is also a very hot transit in that it's very dynamic. There is this extroverted, active, angsty, like it feels very adolescent to me, Mars Uranus. It's like really about wanting to do something, to take action, to make a change, to innovate. There's a restlessness. There's wanting to, whenever we have Uranus, it's about wanting to radically change the system in a way where you never even thought that you would want to change something. It's very unconventional. It's very much about, at the very least, questioning the status quo. And when I say status quo, it's like that could be what's the norm in your setting, whether that's your home situation, your relationships, your work setting, blah, 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 any of those things. And then also it's about questioning, is this the way that you're doing things in the life that you're living? Is this actually what you want? Or is this just something that you've been going along with? Is it actually of your choosing? And when we have Mars here, this is really about, yes, taking action. Mars is very connected to anger and frustration, and Mars is also connected to our defense system, our internal defense system. It's connected with the autoimmune system. It is that part of us that wants to push back and defend and advocate when a boundary or a limit has been crossed, whether that is something from the outside or that's something that we have crossed within ourselves. And so I think that, again, this has already been building, and we'll talk more about it next week when it is exact. But that's also something that's happening this week, is this kind of anticipation building of wanting to change something or wanting to advocate for a change that suits you, that suits your authentic way of being. And I also say too, when we're looking at a Uranus transit of any kind, we want to make sure that we're looking at not just the the like excited feeling now, but we're also making sure that long term we can change our mind if we need to. So I think that Uranus can be about getting so excited to make the change that the change happens and then there's some sort of fallout afterwards. And that's not always the case, of course, but I think it's important to kind of like temper the excitement so that it's innovation that is life-giving for you versus destructive. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so all of these things, and then the lunar cycle context is the emotional tone. In addition to all of these things, so we have our first quarter moon in Libra on Saturday the 13th. And the first quarter moon is the point in the lunar cycle where the moon is growing. It's continuing to become brighter and brighter in the sky. And there is this moment of deciding how you want to proceed with things. You're moving forward, things are happening, there's more extroverted energy that's happening, and it can be a day where there is a deciding to more fully commit into something or deciding to reorient how it is you want to go forward. And I'll also say on Sunday, so the first quarter moon happens on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the 14th, the moon hops into Scorpio, and it's going to make a square to that Venus-Pluto opposition. And so this is like, I mean, the moon in Scorpio is also like a very deeply, intensely feeling placement. And so there's a lot of feeling here on Sunday. I think there's a lot of potential for having very deep and meaningful conversations. There's a potential for deep contemplation. And it may just be a day where you're having a lot of feelings, and that's okay. I think that it can also be great for doing any sort of healing work or work that is cleansing or reparative or even just giving yourself the space and time to slow down and to notice what's happening somatically in your physical body. So lots of themes overall this week around power dynamics and relationships, self-worth, self-esteem, autonomy, self-agency, and I think overall this is a week where we're seeing a shift in our relational patterns and how when we realize something or we become more aware of something, that has an effect on the way that we show up with other people. Okay, so I'm going to pull some tarot cards for you. Feel free to find yourself in a comfortable place, whether that is a rhythmic movement or focusing on your breath or a sensation in your body. And don't be shy. If there is something that you would like guidance around this week, you can bring that into your awareness, bring that into your heart. When we ask the questions, sometimes more information comes up. Okay, one more here. You can pick a number between 1 and 3 if you want one card to speak to you in particular. Oh, this one like hopped out. Okay. All right. The first card is the Seven of Wands. And I'm actually going to read from the guidebook in this one because I haven't pulled this card from this deck in quite a long time. So the imagery in this card, there's a person who is like sitting on top of a really full suitcase. And the suitcase is full of all these different brooms, and it's sort of like busting open, and they're like trying to smush the suitcase down, and they're looking up, and above them there is their cat with a very surprised expression on its face, and it's got this broomstick. So when I'm looking at this card, it's like, oh, there's someone that's like really trying to prepare for something, maybe preparing for a trip, literal or metaphorical. Okay, the Seven of Wands, the road ahead requires preparation. Do not give in to others your desires and principles. Believe and protect yourself. Yeah, so traditionally a lot of this card is about protecting or defending the self, and I'm really thinking about Mars here. But in this deck in particular, it's really about preparing and not compromising what is important to you because of the influence of other people. And so when I'm looking at this, there's something here around, I don't know, it's a little tricky because this person wants to bring all of these things. And there might be this wondering, okay, how to proceed. It kind of reminds me of the Ten of Wands, but with less pressure or less fatigue to it. Because this is like the beginning of the trip, this card, the Seven of Wands, where you're preparing for the journey ahead. And the container that you have, the capacity that you have, in this case the suitcase, but metaphorically the space that you have in your life or in your psyche, there is not enough room for all of the things that you want to bring with you. And so I don't know. This card kind of feels more like don't sacrifice your desires and principles. And so I don't know, like this feels like maybe you need to, or you would benefit from like reorganizing the suitcase. I'm thinking about, I just got these. I learned that there's like these little mesh cube things that you can put your clothes in, and then they somehow compress the clothes in the suitcase so that you have more room. I don't know, maybe you need to do the symbolic version of that. Maybe there is a reorganization that you need to do here, but you may be, I don't know, getting some pressure around the volume of things that you can bring in. We're going to look at the other cards and we may come back to this, but it feels really important here to not compromise what's important to you and not be swayed by other people, because you know what is best for you. You know what is right for you. And that's going to change also. You know, you might have a different sense of what is right for you in the future versus now versus the past, etc. But like you are the one that is deciding. You're the one that's preparing. Okay, the second card is the Two of Cups. And the Two of Cups is about relationships. It is about unions, partnerships coming together, whether that is romantic, platonic, or business. This card is always so sweet to me because there's two people that are sitting together doing each other's makeup. And it always feels very sweet. And there's this creative playfulness, and there's this affectionate sort of exchange here. There's sort of this, in this card, there's this sort of, I mean, this card can definitely relate to like a romantic connection, but there's almost like a sibling sort of theme here where there's this like kinship sort of quality to it. And so initially when I'm looking at this, it's like, okay, there is preparation for something ahead and trying to discern what is important to you, and like having being your own advocate is really what the Seven of Wands is about, and then coming together in relationships. So that may be getting advice, seeking support, or simply coming together with another person. I don't know, maybe you're preparing to come together with another person. Maybe you're preparing for a relationship in some way. And then the last card is the Empress. So this is such a beautiful card. In this deck, there's a person who's sitting back. They're at a desk and they're sitting back on their chair with their legs up on the table and their head resting back in their arms. And they're just sort of like chilling, relaxing. It feels very sweet to me. The Empress is about the primal force of creativity. The Empress is about fertility and potential and something sacred coming into being. There's this sense of being with the Empress, being versus doing. It's a reminder that there are some things that we don't need to logically, analytically execute, that nature will take its course. And so, actually, let's see what's going on here. So there's kind of, maybe there's like a project or something that you're preparing for. Maybe, now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about the term baggage and how sometimes baggage or the suitcase can be a turn of phrase for our emotional baggage or the things that we bring in our psyche from relationship to relationship, and how we all have our patterns and our ways of being. And I wonder if that is something, like maybe this is less about this person packing the suitcase, and maybe it's more about opening the suitcase to see what's in there. I don't know. Because I'm thinking about Venus Pluto here. And so I don't know, maybe this week there is this thing around looking at what is in your suitcase, looking what your, and I'm not a fan, to be clear, I'm not a fan of the term baggage because I think it tends to be pejorative and it tends to shame someone for having challenging emotions or interpersonal dynamics, which are very normal, and we all have our things that we struggle with around relationship. That is the nature of relationship. And so I don't know, there might be something here where you're exploring the challenging and or beautiful pieces around relationship, and that may be explored quite literally, maybe in an individual relationship, or maybe this is something that it doesn't mean that you need to necessarily process it with a person, but I'm wondering if you may realize that there's a dynamic between you and a person in your life, and that comes up to look at, and that there can be this sort of ease and playfulness and looking at what is actually going on. When I'm thinking about makeup too, makeup is very much about like a curated presentation. So there's like, we can change it, we can modify it, and we can use makeup as creative expression or to amplify certain qualities. And so I feel like that's part here of like looking at what might be amplified in your own psyche. And then from that, there's a sense of ease and being able to be with yourself. The Empress is a really beautiful ending card in that it is like everything is okay. You don't need to do anything. You are beautiful and wonderful and creative exactly as you are. All right, that is your forecast for the week. I am sending you so much love and wishing you a wonderful and most easeful week. Again, my name is Shawna McGrath. If you want to find out more about me and my work, you can find me on my website, theastropsyche.com. I'll see you soon. Bye.